from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And I would like to take this opportunity, if I may, to continue on with answering some viewer questions that I was so fortunate to have been able to receive from you from a few months back. I am so flattered and moved that you would be interested in what it is I might have to say on a given topic. So thank you very much. And in that spirit, I apologize in advance if my comments or if my responses are in any way unsatisfactory to you. I am doing my best, but the questions are really lovely and of a high level, and so I think my comments or my responses are can never reach that same height. So I just want to say thank you and also my apologies, but I will try to answer as many questions as possible. So next up is a question from Philosophical Moon Powder. So hello, Philosophical Moon Powder. It's nice to see you again, and I hope you're well, my friend. And your question is this: what film would you say uses the medium to its fullest potential? Films that use the medium in a way that no other art form can even attempt to replicate. An example would be Tarkovsky's Mirror. I believe that film uses the film medium in such a way that it can't be achieved in any other form of art. Sorry if I'm being a little repetitive. No, not at all. On the contrary, this is a brilliant question. And so thank you very much for this. I want to say, first off, that your example that you cite, the Tarkovsky work, Mirror, I think, is a splendid response. It is a brilliant response, my friend. I can see exactly, or I think I understand what it is you're saying. If my comments don't necessarily align with yours, I apologize. But my sense, based on what I read from your comment, is that a film like Mirror is one where, and I should say also that it's going to be released, or it has been released by Criterion this year. The copy that I pre-ordered has not yet arrived here in Tokyo as of the time of the making of this particular video, so I haven't seen the new Criterion release yet. I'm looking forward to it immensely, by the way. But just going back in general about the work, I think the work is one where it is, to put it in very generalized terms, I mean, it's about many things, but one of the things it is, or at least it's endeavoring to do, and I think it succeeds in this spectacular fashion, is the idea of somehow using the cinema, or the medium of cinema, to use it or apply it in order to try to capture or some kind of representation or recreation or a somehow an embodiment in these visual terms that are arguably quite palpable because they are printed on, film stock, or film that is then played through a projector and shot with light shining through, and it's projected onto a screen, or it is in, say, other forms of technology. It is turned into pieces of data that are embodied in some kind of distribution stream or disk of some sort that, when programmed in the right way, then can show an image on, say, a television screen or a projector, etc. So it is making, in other words, the film is in many ways using these technological aspects of the art of cinema, and it's trying to create what could be said to be a wholly subjective point of view, and it's trying, or it's endeavoring to capture a wholly subjective view in objective terms. And so what I mean by this is the film Mirror is, in essence, a type of memory, or the idea of visions and memory and feelings and rumors and ideas and thoughts that are part of everyone's makeup, of everyone's, say, perspectives on life and outlooks and memories and one's past and one's present. And the idea of ideas or images or thoughts blending in with each other without any type of edit. It's everything seamless. It glides from one time period to another. Maybe a memory that I have of someone that I met in the past, or maybe my imagination or my intuition about what someone that I knew might have gone through. I might not have been there, but I can imagine what that person maybe, possibly, perhaps might have done in that particular situation. So the subjective point of view in terms of one's own life and one's own memories, but also in how one perceives other people in other situations, like one's parents, mother, or siblings, or other family members, or people that are close to you. And so this is the whole package of the subjective experience. And so it is very, I think, it is a very challenging thing to capture something so ephemeral and so almost amorphous. It's to capture that and trying to present it in these concrete, objective terms that cinema is. It is, I think, a very challenging aspect. Now, a film like Mirror does it so splendidly, and it even adds to that thesis of the idea of cinema somehow being this means, this conduit, this ability, this way in which one can express these subjective feelings or thoughts, where, say, words might otherwise fail that particular person. And in fact, there are many moments, or not many, but there are certain moments in the film which speak to this directly. The idea of somehow maybe words, the spoken word might fail us in certain points in our life, because we want to express ourselves in some way, maybe in the spoken word, but for whatever reason, it is difficult to do so in that form. But maybe we can express ourselves and our subjective thoughts in another way, i.e. cinema. And I think the film does speak to that type of thesis very directly and very powerfully and quite convincingly, in fact. And so I totally get what it is that you're suggesting when you say Mirror as a possible answer to your brilliant question. The idea of somehow being able to capture in concrete, objective terms something that is wholly subjective and amorphous and so totally unique, so unique that it perhaps can only be understood by the person that is holding that subjective viewpoint, which is therefore making a film like Mirror even more powerful, because it therefore makes these inscrutable ideas, i.e. those thoughts that one might have that another person might have difficulty understanding, because the idea of we are separate human beings that have our own perspectives. So how do we truly appreciate the thoughts and perspectives of the other? That's one of the dilemmas, right, of existence. But that's a type of brilliant thing that a film like Mirror can achieve, or endeavor to achieve, which is this bridge, if you will, using, as I say, concrete objective terms, the ability to, or at least endeavor to, capture something of the subconscious or the subjective essence. And so that is, in kind of an interesting way, a kind of bridge between two human beings, which I find very powerful indeed. So, but then to return to your great question, how would I respond to it? It's, again, very difficult, because I think also it really speaks to how one sees cinema, how one engages with cinema. So I think people who might be answering this question might have different answers depending on their own perspectives and backgrounds and their own viewpoints on cinema and on life and life experiences, etc. If we were to think about, say, a type of spectacle the idea of cinema being able to achieve a type of spectacle on the one hand, but the spectacle itself has a type of truth or meaning or significance that speaks to something very fundamental, and it moves us in that fundamental way. I can probably say, for instance, maybe I think maybe two films come to mind. Again, this isn't an exclusive list, but just for example, the first film probably would be, as an example, maybe Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. I think there is a real definitiveness in the fact that the more detailed it goes, I think the more one realizes the more that one the farther one goes into that film, the more one realizes just how profound it is in terms of showing us the significance of our lives and our existences. On the one hand, the fact that people in that world have the ability and power to essentially change the course of history, but it is also showing us the minute, and also the fact that maybe there's something of the meaningless because of the fact that the infinite is in fact infinite. In fact, it's well beyond our own capacities and our own senses of existence of who we are. So I like that push and pull, and I think the film presents this catalog of that push and pull in a very in this quite articulate fashion that never ceases to amaze and delight and shock whenever I see that film. I do think that's a very shocking film. It is incredibly shocking in many respects, because it says in these brilliantly conceived contradictions. It says, in essence, the idea of evolution is destruction, and the idea of growth is in contradiction. The realization of how minuscule one is in the scope of the universe. But if there's meaning found in that, there is a type of a leap forward. So in that way, it does speak to, I think, this sense of immersion, the power of cinema that is so overwhelming and so deep that it does speak on this very direct level. So that, I think, is another example. And I said I would bring up two. So the second of the two would be David Lynch's Eraserhead. I think Eraserhead is a completely unique experience. It is a completely unique experience because I think that is a film that I can't imagine it existing in any other form. You know what I mean? It's something about its use and its the way in which it is really stretching and pushing the cinematic art form to a limit. And that limit is a very dark and mysterious and funny and bizarre and strange and beautiful composite of these things that, when they're all together, they really, one thinks on a type of maybe on a theoretical level. All these components, when they're put together, they shouldn't work, but there is a way in which the lack of balance is in fact part of the point in that world, and the idea of the shifting of the equilibrium in all the elements that are within, say, a single scene or a single shot of that film, Eraserhead. I mean, this is true, I think, of David Lynch's art and the craft overall, but there's something about Eraserhead, about how you have these characters that are when they're in the same room and maybe they're in the same space, but they are totally on different planes. They have no connect in their conversations. One person is thinking one thing, and the other person is thinking a completely different, separate thing. And they might be talking, but they're not making a connection, but they are in this subtle and strange and wonderful way, because the fact that there's a recognition of there being no connection is itself a type of leap forward. And this is true, I think, in all of Lynch's works, but in Eraserhead that becomes, I think, a very, very fundamental point, because that film is about one of the ways to look at the film, arguably, is how people relate to each other, both on an emotional level and on a physical level, and that disconnect creates a sense of chaos and a sense of insecurity, and also a sense of loss and being bereft and totally vulnerable. And so what does that mean? And how does that vulnerability repair itself or mend itself or protect itself from any kind of attack? That is, I think, one of the key aspects of that film. And so it becomes, in this way, much like, say, or Mirror is, or 2001: A Space Odyssey is, it becomes this ultimately direct type of representation of something within the subconscious. In other words, it is so directly, it feels to me anyway, to be so directly this type of representation of something truly being thought and felt and dreamed in this nightmarish or dream-like ballet fashion. It feels very much like one is experiencing it's not just another world, it's not just another time and place, but it is in fact a reflection of a type of dream state. Now, that is where I think a lot of the fun comes in, because then one can watch the film, or at least I can watch the film Eraserhead, and I can think to myself, is this a film that I'm watching and I'm engaging with because I can understand from the outset that I acknowledge that it is, say, the dreamscape of someone else who is not me, who is outside of my own perspective. So it's completely outside of my own space, but I can still appreciate it because I can see this, that. So do I look at it in that way, or do I, as a viewer, look at that film Eraserhead, and I think, I see this, and I know it's made by someone else, but in this odd way, in this strange and beautiful way, I am linking to it, I'm connecting with it, and I can see this little symbol, or this storyline, or this arc of characters, or this visual image, and I can see that, and I think, my goodness, that's something that I can relate to. And that's something like loneliness, or yearning for something, yearning for someone that maybe those feelings aren't reciprocated, or something of that sort, and how to deal with that, especially when family is involved, especially when one's maybe desires are involved, and dreams and illusions are involved, dreams versus reality. And if I, as a viewer, see that and I can identify with that, at certain degrees anyway, then I realize that probably something that I am acknowledging as a direct representation of someone's subconscious thus becomes, in those ways, a representation of my own. And that link is, in my eyes, wow, like boom. And this is the brilliance of David Lynch, I think, in my eyes, which is, I think, part of the reason, that's one of the main reasons why I would use that as the example to try to answer the question, and also to go back to the idea of a film like Eraserhead being, in many, or works of Lynch in general, being in many ways about the capturing of characters who are on completely different planes of existence. They are maybe talking to each other, but they are just not connecting at all. And that's part of the humor, and that's part of the charm, and that's part of the wit, and that's part of the grace and the beauty of those scenes in Lynch world. In that great, strange, mysterious way, he shows us that even disconnects have connections. And that idea of being able to recognize that, oh, there is some kind of magic going on between these two human beings, these two souls, even though they might be on completely separate planes of existence. And that is a very powerful thing indeed. And I think that parallel can be drawn to this notion that I was trying to bring up earlier, at least as far as I interact with the film, which is the do I look at it as something of a representation of someone who's completely different or completely separate from me? Or do I recognize certain aspects that I can interpret as being possibly things that I can relate to? And if that's the case, then it could be said also to be a type of representation of something of the subconscious, at least to a certain degree anyway, that I can engage with as a viewer. And so the idea of a type of a non-connection between that person, the filmmaker, and the viewer, but then it becomes a connection. And so that's very much part of Lynch world, in my eyes anyway. And watching a film like Eraserhead is it's like boom. And so in that way, I see that as being one of the great expressions of cinema, something about the power of cinema that is very unique to the art form. So, and it again, it does suggest a type of mirroring of the subconscious that is very direct and quite shocking in that directness. So I think that would be the way to answer the question, which is a brilliant question. I must re-emphasize and say again, a brilliant question, Philosophical Moon Powder. So thank you so much for that. I'm sorry if my response is not up to par, so I apologize, but I hope that you can forgive me again. Wonderful question. And for anyone who is interested, please feel free to let me know in the comments section below how you might answer the great question from our dear friend, Philosophical Moon Powder. Okay, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great movies. So thank you so much, as always, for your time. I very much appreciate it. Stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.